So we have kind of a wide range of folks, and I know that you all are definitely the pre-K through 12 experts. But I'd love to hear a little bit about what you think about how you think about your students that are moving on from St. Vrain School District and maybe potentially kind of starting to work with folks like us in higher ed. So I was wondering how you think that design thinking may connect to or be relevant for students as they move into kind of the next phase of their lives after they leave the work that you all are doing.
Right. I think I think it's really relevant. I think that there are a couple of things that happen when you really start to use design thinking. One, you develop a skill set, right? As you work through any type of human-centered process, these students are going to develop essential skills. You know, we really focus on the skills that the CDE has on their website: personal skills, entrepreneurial skills, civic skills, and professional skills. And this is all on top of or in addition to content and their experiences that they have. So they have a really vast set of skills that they can bring with them into a workplace. I think another big change in how students today are entering the workforce, as say opposed to my parents when they were entering the workforce, is this ability to problem seek and problem solve. And so we've given them this really solid structure to follow in order to ensure that they're getting to the root of the problem. When you use empathy to identify with your user, what you're doing is removing all of your preconceived notions of what you think the problem is. And then you're actually able to dive in a little deeper and find out, you know, what the problem is. There was a design challenge I was engaged in at one point, and it was really about how do I make your morning better, right? And the person that we were interviewing went on and on and on and on about how she was exhausted in the morning, this, that, and the other thing. And through that deep empathy gathering, we come to find out that her baby wasn't sleeping. And so it really had nothing to do with the morning at all. The reason her morning was so difficult was because she didn't have a routine to get her little one to sleep so that she could sleep. So when we ended up problem solving how to make her morning better, it wasn't about, you know, a bigger, better alarm clock or more coffee. It was about her nighttime routine 12 hours prior. And so, so really being able to get to the root of an issue is really how we make change, right? If we continued working on coffee and alarm clocks, nothing would ever change for her. And that's not what businesses are looking for. Businesses are looking for that root cause, and how do we address that? And then I think that kind of leads to another point of really, these kids are agile learners. They're flexible, they're open-minded, they're strategic, they're persistent, and so much more. And I think really that the process of design thinking and the number of ways in which they use it is what makes them really marketable as they enter secondary education or the workforce.
You know, and I would add to that too. I mean, all the things that you were saying earlier, Kristen, about prototyping and this like fail fast, fail often piece, I think allows for like that real, I don't know, I want to say like, not holding on to your solution and just being like being open to that change and that collaboration of like working with other people. You might have really like thought really hard about this idea, and then all of a sudden someone comes along with this other piece and you're like, you know what, that is so much better. And so that collaboration and needing to work with others. I mean, we're, you know, in higher education, we're all, I mean, well, in all throughout our entire lives, we're all collaborating. And I think all through this design thinking process, it really builds, like I said, like flexible and collaborative, open-minded students. You know, so the beauty of this process, why I really love it, is that it can be used to work through any type of problem. You know, Chris and I were laughing as we were talking about this, that, you know, it even can be used to learn how to organize lunch with a friend during the COVID pandemic, right? Like, I mean, those are things we have to we have to really go through empathy. What are your comfort levels? Where, you know, what is acceptable to you? What have you agreed? You know, so I mean, there's all those pieces in there that we need to use, I think, in our daily lives. But, you know, it also could be used to solve a multi-step issue for an aeronautics company. Like, this design thinking process can be used, I think, in every aspect of our lives. So, you know, and once you know it, I think there really isn't a solution you can't tackle.
I would agree. I would agree.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you both so much. I think that really covers a lot of the questions that we ran. Is there anything else that you all wanted to add, or kind of as we move forward?
I think that design thinking can be used at all levels. One of the things that a lot of times people don't really understand is the significance of teaching things to kids when they're really, really young, and how that can set a framework for their future. And so one of the things, I'm going to put Nicole on the spot and embarrass her just a little bit, but back in the day when we were first starting this, she and I were talking, and she was in her preschool classroom teaching 3-year-olds, and she was using design thinking with them to problem solve. And so when kids were fighting over a toy, your first reaction is, oh, we don't take toys from other children, give it back, but that doesn't really help the child. It's just, I have to now deal with this until I can get that toy back, right? And so by using the design process, we were able to help those kids with their feelings. And so, she could say, okay, Dennis, take a look at Kristen, and what's her face telling you? Oh, it's sad, or she's crying, or, and so it's really helping kids understand that, yeah, when you took that toy from her, that actually affected her. And what is the problem? Well, the problem is she's sad. We don't have enough toys. I want the toy she wants. And then they're able to actually start ideating and coming up with solutions. Well, what's something you could do? And as a kid, they're going to think, well, I don't want to give up my toy, but it's a truck and there's another truck in the classroom. So I'm going to go get another truck and give it to this kid. And so not only did they solve the problem, then they can test it to see if that worked. And they're now viewed as caring. And so people are going to be more supportive of them. And maybe they just made a new friend because they gave them this truck. And so that was something that Nicole would work with them on all the time. And eventually it got to a point where these few kids that had been really struggling were just making great strides in their ability to problem solve. And these were kids who maybe weren't problem solving at the same level as other 3-year-olds in the classroom. That was really helpful for them to now be at the same level as their peers in terms of problem solving. And so she really changed the behaviors and the dynamics between those kids in her classroom. And instead of these kids being seen as the nasty little boy or the mean one, or he's not very nice, or he's not my friend, she gave those kids a skill set where they could actually, really integrate themselves into the classroom in ways that weren't possible before. And, a lot of them weren't verbal. So it was huge. It was really transformational. And she tells me all the time, oh, no, I wouldn't have done it without you. And that's part of that collective efficacy, Nicole, where we work together to get things done. But it's a very powerful thing. It's a very, very powerful thing.
Kristen, I go back to those moments. I go back to that use of design thinking all the time. I think I learned so much about them. I think it really gave them so much agency in the classroom. And it really, I think, taught me how much I was assuming of what I was seeing, right? Like as the adult, you think what you just saw, and like sometimes you didn't see the interactions. So you go over, all you see is like the aftermath of whatever was going on. And so it really, I'm a naturally empathetic person, probably to a fault, but I really was making some assumptions of what I thought had happened based on previous behaviors, right? Like I had this implicit bias of what I thought what had occurred. And so really using design thinking gave me the skills to empower the children to tell me what was happening and what solutions were meaningful to them, because sometimes they would solve it in a way that I wouldn't have dreamed of, right? Or it would not be acceptable to me. Like if that was me in that situation, I wouldn't have liked that solution, but to them, they were completely happy. And, and they, we would introduce problem solving tools in the classroom on, different parts of, the school year. And I would say, what other solutions can we try? And they would, get a chance to test them out. And it was really empowering, I think, for all of us. I'm really grateful that you and I partnered in that way to think about using it in that manner. It was a really, I think, kind of out of the box, way for me to think about using design thinking. But I think now it's so infused in my problem solving skill set. Like, I'm just really, I'm glad that you brought that up, Kristen. That one's really, really meaningful to me. It really deeply.
And what you said was, and those solutions wouldn't have been acceptable to me. And Dennis, that goes back to that whole piece of what design thinking is really about. It's not about me, the user. or me, the designer. It's about you, the user. And so as teachers, we often try to put forth solutions that we think are great. And like you said, maybe it wouldn't have been an acceptable solution for you, but it was completely acceptable for this child. And so that child was the user, and that's who we have to design for. So again, it's just a really powerful tool to use in education. Well, to use everywhere. I mean, both Nicole and I have designed, think our husbands. So they don't always love it, but it often gets the problem solved.
That's wonderful. Well, I want to thank you both so much. Every time I hear you all talk about design thinking, I want to like go and like design think. And so I really appreciate that you all are taking the time to chat, and I look forward to getting a chance to work with you all again soon.
Yeah, hopefully the future